You open your terminal, start vibe coding, let the AI rip through your codebase for 3 hours, and then you check your API dashboard. $47. Gone. For a prototype you might throw away tomorrow. That is not a edge case. That is Tuesday for a lot of developers right now. And the wild part is, it did not have to happen that way. There is a CLI tool called Vibe Budget. It runs before you write a single line of AI-generated code. It looks at your project, estimates how many tokens your session is going to consume, and tells you the dollar cost broken down by model before you commit to anything. Cost as a pre-flight check, not a post-mortem. Here is what it actually does. You install it with a single npm command. Then you point it at your project directory and tell it which model you are planning to use. Vibe Budget scans your codebase, counts the context you would be feeding into the LLM, your files, your prompts, your scaffolding, and it produces a table. Left column, model name. Middle column, estimated token count. Right column, estimated cost in dollars. It supports the major APIs OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and it uses their current published pricing to calculate the numbers. You see GPT-4o at one price, Claude Sonnet at another, Gemini Flash at a fraction of both. Right there, side by side, before you have spent a cent. The output is not a vague warning. It is a specific number. Something like, this session will cost approximately $2.40 on Claude Haiku or $11.80 on GPT-4o Turbo. That is the kind of information that changes your decision. Maybe you prototype on the cheap model first. Maybe you realize your context window is bloated with files the AI does not need and you trim it. Maybe you just decide the task is not worth it today. All of that happens before any API call. What surprised me was how simple the mental shift is. Most developers think about LLM costs the way they used to think about AWS bills, something you discover at the end of the month with mild dread. Vibe Budget treats it like a fuel gauge. You check it before you drive. But here is the thing, it is not magic, and it has real limits you should know about. Vibe Budget estimates. It does not know exactly how your conversation will branch, how many back and forth turns you will need, or whether the AI is going to fail 3 times before it gets your component right. If you are doing heavy iterative debugging, 10 rounds of refinement, lots of error paste retry loops, your actual bill could be 2 or 3 times the estimate. The tool gives you a floor, not a ceiling. It also does not track costs in real time as your session runs. Once you start coding, you are on your own again. There is no live meter ticking. And right now, it does not handle multimodal inputs. If you are feeding in screenshots or images alongside your code, that cost is not captured. The estimate only covers text tokens. It also assumes you are working in a relatively standard project structure. Very large monorepos or unconventional setups might confuse the context scanner. You may need to manually scope what you pointed at to get a useful number. So where does this go from here? The honest answer is, the core idea is more powerful than the current implementation, and that gap is the interesting part. The most obvious next step is real-time tracking, a mode that stays open during your vibe coding session, watches the API calls, and updates a running total so you always know where you are. Think of it as a taximeter for your AI session. That feature alone would make this a tool developers leave running permanently. There is also a natural fit with CI pipelines. Imagine a GitHub action that runs Vibe Budget on a pull request, flags if the estimated cost of an AI-assisted code review or generation task exceeds a budget threshold, and blocks the merge until a human approves the spend. Cost governance built directly into the workflow. And as local models get better, Llama, LM Studio, whatever comes next, a tool like this could flip its own logic, show you the cost on cloud APIs versus the electricity and hardware cost of running locally, and let you make that trade-off consciously every time. None of that exists yet. But the foundation is there, and the foundation is the right one. So why does Vibe Budget exist at all? Because vibe coding changed the economics of software development faster than the tooling caught up. When you are writing code manually, you have a natural throttle, your own speed. You cannot accidentally spend $50 in an afternoon just by typing. But when you hand the keyboard to an AI, that throttle is gone. Sessions run long, contexts get large, models get expensive, and the bill arrives after the fact with no warning. Wide budget exists because someone decided that was the wrong default. Cost should be visible before you start, not after. It is a tiny CLI tool, it is open source, it takes about 30 seconds to install, and it represents a genuinely different way of thinking about AI-assisted development. Not as a black box you feed money into, but as a resource you budget like any other. If you are building anything with LLM APIs right now, run it once on your next project before you start. Even if the number is small, knowing it changes how you work. Next episode, we are looking at a tool that does something similar but for inference latency, predicting how slow your AI feature will actually be in production before you ship it. If cost surprised you, wait until you see the latency numbers.